Hello students, welcome to part 3 of how to program the video game Circle Wars using Scratch. Okay, so we're going to work a little bit more on our friends clones. The last part of the script for the friends clones checks if the clone is touching the player. If it is, the clone gets deleted. Okay, so let's go into the control blocks and we're going to look for an if-then button, an if-then block, I should say. So I'm going to work over here, even though it's going to be added to our second script. Let's go to sensing, okay, and we'll grab the touching button. If the clone is touching the player, then what happens? Okay, that's what we want. We want the player to collect as many clones as possible. So we'll go to data, go to the data blocks, and we will change score by 1. So every time you run into a clone, your score goes up by 1. Then, to make it easier to identify when that happens, we're going to play a sound. So let's go to the sound blocks, and we'll play a sound, and we'll keep this. We'll keep the popping sound. Okay, that's a good sound for when we run into a circle. And then let's go back to the control blocks and let's delete this clone. So in other words, when we run into that clone, our score goes up, but we want that clone to disappear. Okay, so now this if-then block is going to go inside this repeat block underneath the move one step. So I'm going to show you where it goes. So I'm going to grab the if-then block and place it underneath the move one steps. Move one steps, and then we have the if-then block. Okay? All right. So this is all within the loop. So we know that the clone is only going to be alive for 300 steps. But if you run into it before that time, you get a point. It'll play a popping sound, and then it will delete the clone. So let's check to see if that's working. So when we click on the green flag, this time I want you to actively go for those green clones. And as you collect them, you should be hearing the popping sound in your headphones, and the clones should disappear. See how the game seems pretty easy, but we haven't activated the enemies yet. Okay, is it working? Okay, I'm going to click on the stop. All right, I'm going to go to File, Save. Okay, so now let's work on the enemies clones. So I'm going to click on the enemies. Okay, so what we can do is we can use the scripts that we created for the friends. So sorry, I'm going to click back on the friends sprite. And these two scripts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy them and drag them onto the enemies. So this is how we do it. So I'm going to grab the first script here. They should all be locked together here. See how the first script is locked together? So I should be able to click on this and drag it onto the enemy sprite and then let go. Now it might not seem like anything's happened, but you can check. You can click on the enemy sprite and that script should now be copied for enemies. So let's see if we can do the same for the second script. So let's go back to friends and we're going to grab the second script here. When I start as a clone, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to drag that onto the enemy's sprite here. Now when I click on enemies, now you see that it looks like a jumbled mess, but it did work. There are two scripts here. So what happens is whenever you drag a script over, it always places it in the top left-hand corner just to be neat. So in order to separate them, you can grab them, but what you can do is anywhere in this gray area, you can right-click and choose Clean Up, and then left-click on Clean Up, and it should separate the two scripts. Okay? So if I click back on friends, I had one script above the other. If I click on enemies, I've got them side to side. So again, you can put the scripts anywhere you like. Okay, so we're going to make some adjustments to the enemy clones. Okay, so the first thing we're going to change is we're going to change the score. So in the second script here, make sure you're on enemies. Okay, in the second script here, whereas when we ran into a friend, we got a score increased by 1. But what's going to happen is if you get touched by an enemy, your score is going to go at -3. Now this makes the game very, very challenging to win. So we're going to start with -3 and then you can change that later. So we really want to avoid the red enemies. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a second sound. Instead of the popping sound was whenever we got points, whenever we ran into a friend, we're going to change the sound here, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to sounds. Make sure you're still in the enemy sprite. We're going to go to sounds and we're going to load a new sound. So choose sound from library. All right, so I'm going to choose the cymbal sound here. So I can listen to it. All right, so I'm going to click on cymbal and then I'm going to click OK. So now that I've done that in sounds, we've got the popping sound, which it came with, and then we've got the cymbal sound loaded. We can go back to scripts, and now that sound should be available. So I'm going to click this down arrow, and the cymbal should be available. If it's not, then just repeat the step previous to this one. Okay? All right, so now when an enemy runs into us, we're not going to hear a popping sound, we're going to hear that cymbal. So that's another clue for us that that's not a good thing. Okay? All right, so when we run the game this time, we really want to avoid those red enemies because every time they touch us, we should hear a cymbal sound and we should see our score go down by 3 points. Okay, so you see how now challenging, now that we've created clones for the enemies, you'll see how challenging this game is. Okay, it's really tough to get a good positive score. So I played the game for about 20 seconds and my score is -16. Okay, but I know that it's working. I know that when a red enemy touches me, I lose 3 points and I hear the cymbal sound. I know when I touch one of the green friends, I hear a popping sound and my score goes up by 1. Okay? Okay, so this concludes part 3 of the video game project Circle Wars. Thanks for watching. Bye.